And welcome back to Continual. Tonight on the panel room, we're going to be, probably challenging our fates. We're here to talk about writing duos, partnerships, and collaborations. I'm your host, Jim Nettles. And before we go too far this evening, let's go around the room and see who has come up here to break up any writing partnerships. So, Bebe, welcome for the first time. You're up first.
Thank you. I'm Bebe Bayliss. I write sci-fi, horror, mystery so far. I'm a baby writer, and 50% of my published work has been as a co-writer with Gini Koch.
Ugh. I mean, yay.
That, you guys, I'm in the room.
Layla.
I am Layla Dorine. I write MM and all the extra M's romance, a little bit of paranormal with that. A lot of paranormal coming up because I am writing a series with JP Sale. We have just started our first book together, and then I will also be writing my first sapphic next year with TL Travis. So I am new to the co-writing.
Daniel.
Evening all. Yep, Daniel Hand here. I am colloquially known online as the RPG therapist. My latest book is all about using tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons in therapy. But I've also been writing novels, plural, and dozens of short stories with a friend of mine for terrifyingly about 20 years. So... how am I that old? Jesus.
Kiernan?
First of all, you must have been in diapers when you wrote your first short story because you don't
I love
like
you. You and I can be good friends.
Sorry.
I'll give you a
I've been
call
writing for 20 years. I look like I've been writing for 20 years.
It's not the years, it's the mileage, babe.
it's the mileage.
Word count. It's the word count.
I'm Kiernan Kelly. I write GLBTQ plus romance across the genres. I also write horror. I write lots of short stories as well and novellas. That's my sweet spot. I like novella length. But I've also written novels.
Kish?
Hey, so I'm Kish Knight, and I write paranormal/urban fantasy. In terms of novel length, I always start as novellas, but they always end up being over 100,000 words. So, I'm that kind of writer. But I've done, in terms of collabing with other authors, I've done 2 shared world projects so far, and Lacey and I have worked together in those shared world with, a plethora of other authors. But that's my thing.
Jenny?
Hi, I'm Gini Koch. I write the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Dog Books. I also write in a variety of pen names and in all lengths and genres. And recently I have started co-writing with the lovely Bebe Bayliss.
And Ms. Lacey.
I am Lacey. I write horror, dark fantasy, and it could be adult or young adult, but no spice. So I'm sort of like, meh. But yeah, so I've been doing shared worlds so far twice and with Kish Knight in both projects.
Let's actually start this question around, what got you started into wanting to try to write with somebody else? Because there's a lot of reasons we get into co-writing projects. There's a lot of ways that it can help. There's a lot of ways that it can kind of take it and twist us. We'll be diving into all of that. But let's actually just start with what got you into wanting to co-write with somebody. So, Bebe?
Like I said, I'm a baby writer. And I met Gini years ago when I fangirled her on Twitter after reading the Alien series and said something along the lines of, "Oh my God, I love your books. Thank you for not being dead." And instead of blocking me, she said, "Thanks. Why?" And then I pointed out that I didn't have any living writers that I read. She was my first. So we started this Twitter dialogue. We ended up meeting at San Diego Comic-Con. It was an instant hit. Fast forward a few years, I say, I'm a writer. you're a writer. I'm thinking of entering NaNoWriMo. She said, call me. And we talked for 8 hours about what writing could be like. I gave her the first 5 chapters of my novel. She liked one paragraph and pitched the rest. And offered to mentor me, which was enormously generous. So that began just a progression. I went from mentee to beta reader to crit partner, and then ultimately to co-writer. So it's all new for me. So I'm kind of getting in on the ground floor, learning how to write and co-write at the same time. And if I have any bad habits, they're all due to Ginny, because she's totally trained me on all of this.
Can I just say, I'm so sorry that this is your first experience.
Daniel, I was going to agree with Kiernan that you look about 12, but now, man, the years have been hard.
Just remember, BB, remember this one line. Any bad habits you have are Jenny's fault. Just remember that line for the rest of your life.
I actually have it on the list of tattoos I'm getting. So yeah, it's there. Got it.
Layla, since you too are just now diving into the deep end.
Well, not so much just diving professionally. I used to play D&D and all kinds of tabletop games until I had my first kid. And you can't take a colicky baby to a role play game. Doesn't work. So someone hooked me up with writing these online e-feds. It was wrestling e-feds. And so, funny story, my best friend and I co-wrote for years. We were both single moms, and now we've been living together for about 17 years. All the kids are raised. The younger one just turned 20 and got married. And we used to sit here when we had no computer, and we would write on paper with the notebook in front of us and these English comedies she loves on the TV, and pass this notepad back and forth. And so, we wrote that way for years, and then I started writing and getting published and meeting people at conferences. And me and Tammy have been to so many events together that we sat down one day and we're like, ooh, we would like to write this. And the first conference, we're like, okay, idea. We were in Australia earlier in the year. We're roommates, and we're sitting there going, okay, let's just plan this out. Let's get this going so we can have it ready to release next year. One of the other authors I met in Australia was also telling me about a shapeshifter world that she was writing with someone who wasn't really into what they were doing at the time. And she needed a new writing partner. And I read the first book and I was like, okay, this is me. This has got all the shifters. This has got all the kink. This has got all the fun. Sold. You don't even have to ask me twice. So I was so ready to jump back into it again, because I have been doing shared world stuff for the last couple years. I'm part of the big Rocktoberfest group that's about to release all the books. First one started today. So I'm big with the shared world. So it's just the professional co-writing that I'm just now getting back into.
All right, Daniel, how about you?
Well, can I just say that warmed my heart, just that image of you two just sitting next to each other. And I was like, oh. Also, incredibly, not quite as cute and adorably, but that's how I got into collaboration. So about 20 years ago, me and several others played an online RPG. We each created our characters. One of us wrote a paragraph, then somebody else wrote a paragraph, then etc. Like most of these things do, it kind of fizzled out after a while, but me and Jules, my collaborator, we just loved our particular characters. So we ripped them out of that and then just carried on writing about them. And then all of a sudden we've got something like a 200,000 word first novel on our hands, and a truly mind-boggling number of character-based short stories, and a cast of characters who, why aren't they real? I need them in my life. My character is a really grumpy bloke. He's the same character now as he was way back when, but his wife is adorable. So yeah, we just kind of, after the game petered out, we went, "Hey, shall we just carry on?" Yeah. And yeah, then two decades later, hi.
That's the first step to admitting you have a problem. So, Kiernan.
I've written with lots of different people in different forms, because there are all different ways you can co-write a book, right? You can have shared universe, which in my experience, you're doing your own book in this shared universe with all these different rules that you need to obey, right? Then you've got actually writing a book together with someone else. And to me, that means you need to find somebody who's got your writing style or close to it, so that your book is going to be seamless when it's done. So reader doesn't read the book and say, oh, well, this person wrote this book and part and this person wrote that part. It's got to mesh. So finding that right person is kind of like finding magic. And when you find that person, you stay with them. So I've been writing with the same people now for a bunch of years. But I do shared universes. I do shared books. And even in the shared books, even depending on who you're writing with, you can have different styles of writing. So you can do alternate chapters. You can do what we call playing tag, which is you write some and then you tag me and I write some and then you go back and forth that way. So there are all different ways that you can do it. You just need to find what works for you.
Kish?
Well, I love that Daniel mentioned, fizzling out, because that's what happened with my first experience with trying to co-write with someone. I was at a place, because we're wondering like how we all got into this, but I was at a place where, I'd written my books, and I wanted the experience of bouncing around the world with someone else, because, we write these books, we get so excited, it's in our head, and then we have to wait for the readers or the beaters or something to read it and get excited too. But sometimes you want to create with someone. So I had been looking for a writer that had a similar style to mine. And at that time, there was another writer who was looking for a co-writer. So we jumped on it and we tried to do a project together. And we did it where we did, you write one chapter, I write the next, and we alternated like that. I'd never written a book so fast in my life. I mean, those chapters were flying. However, it ended up fizzling out after we'd gotten halfway through, because she felt that this and I felt that, and we fizzled out, but it was a good experience. So after that, I was still writing on my own. And then I got an invite to join a shared world project, which was the Rise of the Elites project, which was a very successful project with, I was in it with Lacey and, Jessica Cage and several other writers. And there was so much energy flying about this world that we were creating. And we were, designing these characters together as a group. We were designing these areas and these worlds and these characters. And it was such a wonderful experience that we made this world bigger than we could have on our own. So then when the opportunity came up for another shared world, I was in. So that's how I got into, co-writing and shared worlds.
Jenny?
I have been wanting to co-write for a while because I have certain things I want to accomplish career-wise. That was one of them, being able to successfully co-write, both as a personal challenge and also because I think you can get a lot more done if you have somebody else helping you. And so when Bebe was like, hey, I want to do this, it's funny because she's like, yeah, from that moment on, it was all an interview. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't know it for a while, right? Because I don't mentor lightly. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of focus. And people have to do what I'm telling them to do, and they have to show that they're writing and show that they want to move forward. It's not, you're not a bad person if you don't, but I have to choose how I'm spending my time. So she was getting good and good and good and good and good. And her sweet spot is actually short stories, short stories, right? And I'm trying to work through with the novel she's trying to write. And I realized that I'm not articulating what needs to be articulated because I'm a natural novelist. So I do it naturally. So it's so like Wayne Gretzky was a terrible hockey coach because he was super good at it. I'm not saying I'm the Wayne Gretzky of novelists, but I am saying that if it comes naturally to you, it is harder to teach. So there was a call that came out, and I said, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And she was all excited, and we decided, we'll co-write this together. And then that call just fizzled out, but it started it. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't instead of me trying to teach you to write a novel, why don't we do what I did, which was you write a novel and you'll write this with me, following along. You're going to learn the pitfalls. You're going to learn the stuff you're going to learn by doing. And that's how that started. And then I was invited into Zombie Needs Brain, that's Anthology Dragoness. And BB's sweet spot area are dragons. I said, so can I do this with a co-writer? And I was like, sure, why not? And so I'm like, guess what? We're co-writing a story together. Let's get that creative. And I agree with what, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Kish, that the stories coming out are, I think, bigger and better than we would have come up with alone. And that's not to insult what we're doing separately, but I really think that that they're coming out both together in creation, but also a little bit bigger and different than either one of us would have done by ourselves. So super excited about it.
Ian?
Let's see. I came into I've never really co-written. Where are my words today? I never did it. I had never done it before until I was invited by Jessica Cage to participate in the Shared World project. And at first it was a little intimidating, just sort of meeting all these different authors in different levels. But once we got into it, it just sort of flew. Being able to collaborate, building the world, coming up with the territories and the rules, and literally seeing it flesh out. I loved it. I loved it because I'm an idea person and I run with ideas. And when we did the Rise of the Elites, loved it. And I was invited to do the Eldritch Trials. Loved it even more because it's just creative minds. I feel like when you get a bunch of creative minds in one spot, like chaos, but good chaos ensues, and beautiful things or really cool things happen from it.
Let's actually start going down that path. Let's talk about kind of some of the benefits, really the things that come out of these kinds of collaborations. So Layla, looking at the fact that this really kind of got you started on your writing path, what are some of the biggest learnings, advantages, benefits you've gotten out of co-writing?
Just that give and take and that way of flowing into what somebody gives you and being able to read it and being able to be like, oh man, yeah. And picking up from there, and you kind of share enthusiasm and energy back and forth too. Me and my collaborators, we usually have a meeting at least once a week via Zoom. We start talking, we start throwing ideas around, and then you really get that enthusiasm of, oh yeah, what if we do this? What if we do that? Ooh, yeah, we've got to reveal this, and holy crap, we just figured out the pairing for the next book. So I love that there's just that energy and that ability to take something and look at it and be like, oh, this has the potential to go here. And you spin it that way, and then you might get it spun back with like this backward spiral on it that's so much fun to play with, that it's not something that I would have come up with on my own. But now that it's in front of me and I get to play with it, it's something that I can just like dive into and be like, oh, this is something new. This is fun. And let me spin it back like 360 upside down to her and see what she does next.
Daniel, how about you?
So it was really exciting for us because this was the first novel that either of us had written. And so we all know how intimidating it can be learning one's craft. And so having somebody there alongside you, made it all the more, as people have said, energetic, exciting. You get bouncing ideas off each other, expanding the worlds that are in your mind, but also caring, comforting. Oh, I'm having a bad day. I just don't think this is working. Well, you've got somebody who you trust implicitly with the writing because they're writing the same thing, and you can learn from each other. I mean, my particular skills, if you want to call them that, in writing are very different from hers. I'm very big picture-y and good at writing fights and chopping people's heads off and stuff like that, whereas she's very zoomed down into the individual scenes and very good at dialogue and character work. And so it became a natural balance, and we were able just to learn from each other, have fun, get through the scary moments of being a new writer together. And at the end of it, like I say, we have this entire world and cast of characters who we'll never be without. They're just there. And 20 years is a long time. I've had a family, careers have got in the way, life happens, but that connection will never go away. And that's just a lovely thing to have.
Kiernan?
For me, shared universes in particular give me the opportunity to dip my toes into waters I might not ordinarily go into. For example, 2 shared universes that I just recently completed. One of them is releasing October 16th, and the other one in December, I believe. The one October 16th is a tentacle romance. Now, that's something I've never written before. It's called Jingle Bells and Elder Gods. And
you really have to get a grip on that.
I really enjoyed writing it because it gave me the chance to cut loose and to do something that I normally would not do. And the second one is Dino Shifters, which is another thing that I probably wouldn't have done had there not been a call for a shared universe, or had I not been invited. So for me, shared universes offer the opportunity to do things I may never have done, on my own.
Kish?
Okay, so for benefits, I definitely have to say those details and understanding your character in a way that you couldn't have predicted. So, for example, like I know EM just mentioned the Eldritch Trials, which was the latest shared world that we worked in. So with the Eldritch Trials, we each had 2 crossover scenes, which each one of us had to cross over scenes with 2 different authors. So we had to co-write a scene with two different authors. So with one particular author that I worked with, I told her the rough idea of my character in the beginning. She told me hers. When we met back up later to flesh out our scene, I was there hammering out blah, 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 blah. This is what our characters are going to do, da, 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 da. But I don't know why. Why would they have met? This is me. Why would they have met? I don't know why. Why are they friends? Da, 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 da. I have it down here that we're friends. And she quietly was like, well, they're friends because such and such. And she told me a perspective of my character that I had no clue about. But she took what I had told her 1 month before, and she thought about my character, and she was able to tell me why these 2 who were completely different would have been friends. So sometimes you have the rough idea, but when you translate it or send it to someone, they're able to translate it back to you in a way that you never even thought about. And as she said it, I realized she was right. Those 2 would have been friends like that. So I wouldn't have been able to see that if she hadn't been able to do that. So that's the benefit. People see things that things that are there, but you can't see. So definitely that.
Jenny?
Well, first of all, I agree with what everybody else has already said. I think you have a good partnership, the benefits are always going to outweigh any negatives. And getting to work with one of my best friends is awesome. Getting to work well with one of my best friends is better. And we just spent 3 or 4 hours today prior to this call fleshing out 7 books in one series, the second book in another series, where I was just stuck. I'm like, I know what's supposed to happen, but I don't know why. We figured all of that out. We worked on, something, for this section of this series, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, right. And it's not like we yes man each other. I think the other thing that's important is we'll tell each other when it stings. It's not even a mystery. It's like, well, that's terrible. And in fact, it's why she's co-writing 2 of the series with me, because she read the first book and 1 as a crit partner and went, well, I hate this character. And when she could articulate why, I could fix the character, and then she loves the character, right? And she was correct. And another, she was like, well, this reads this way, and I know you don't want it to, and things like that. So there's a safety catch with somebody else looking at it that's going to bring a different perspective, where they can say, oh, you that's not going to read well. I know how you're reading it, but no one else is going to read it that way. They're going to read it differently, and it's not the way you want. So there are all of those advantages. But I'm also going to go back to something that I think I mentioned earlier. I can get a lot more done if I'm working with somebody else, because while I am writing on project A, they are researching on projects B, C, and D, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. I have a lot of deadlines. I have a lot of stuff that's due. And it's super nice to have some of these projects where I can go, okay, lobbing it over to you. You let me know when you're ready. And we're usually ready pretty quickly. It's not like, 6 months later, she's going to get back to me. So we work well. We work at about the same speed. Our voices sound similar enough that we're melding really well. The highest thing is when I reread something that she has gone over and I can't tell who wrote what. That's very exciting.
Ian?
I think everybody's pretty much covered a lot of just what you get, the benefits of writing with partners. I think that, of course, it's the relationships, because I feel like out of both projects, I've maintained, just great friends that like I could collaborate with or just like reach out to and pick their brains. I feel like I've learned more. I've gained a new skill for each project, like learning a little something extra about world building, or just taking character building just even higher. And then when it comes to just even the crossover scenes that we did, working with somebody, like I basically met with, the other authors, and we initially decided on a scene one way, but then at the end of it, like, the scenes would change, but they worked, and it's just nice having someone to bounce your work off of until it's nice and shiny. And that's, I feel like that's the best part of it, just learning more, like gaining, just gaining an extra skill and gaining like a new friend in the writing community.
Phoebe?
I think Daniel said something really nice about there being a lot of trust there, and that's absolutely true. Gini's one of my best friends, and so why wouldn't I want to spend time doing this? But when we first came to co-writing, it was, when I think back on it, it was pretty lopsided. She had dozens and dozens of published novels and stories, and I had a pretty good stack of rejections. But she needed something special. She says, there's a story call, it's weird, and I don't do weird, you're weird, which is perfect, actually. That's totally my jam. And so we come to writing with a similar voice that meshes, but from 2 really different perspectives. Gini always wants people to fall in love and get married. And I always want people to die or at the least suffer crippling disappointment. And somehow we're able to make those voices mesh and meld. So it's just a really interesting excavating each other's ideas, elaborating on them, building on them. It's super exciting. And again, when you can do this with a dear friend, just it's not exactly a day at the office. It's fantastic.
Sorry, just to interrupt, Jim, before you start. So but we can all see why. We can all see why you'd work so well together, because let's face it, marriage is a kind of death.
He was nicer about it than I was going to be. Well, and so let's actually take the next piece of this, because I frequently, when I'm doing workshops and things, I talk about the act of writing and editing and reading as being an act of co-creation, right? Because when you write, your editors help find and polish those edges that you can't see anymore. But also for the reader that picks something up, you don't necessarily know exactly how they're ever going to read and interpret what you've put down. I mean, we know that the character's never going to exactly look the same as what they are in your head. Some of the tone, some of the snark, some of the, even sometimes the bad jokes aren't going to fall and land the same way because of different people's experiences. And looking at writing partnerships I've done, things like that I've done over the years, often means that I get insights into some of the stuff I'm writing, or works around some of the road bumps and problems like that. That, necessarily, you're going down a path and you're like, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm stuck. I'm here and I know I got to get to here. I got to figure out this bridge. And you can, a lot of the time, work things out or see possibilities that you haven't come across yourself. Because again, your co-authors have different experiences, different thoughts, and they look and say, but when you tell me this is the vision I get in my head. With all of that kind of in mind, that big benefit of the co-writing experience and the co-creation experience, then we also get into some of the, the downside of it: disagreements, problems, challenges, just general differences of opinion, or, maybe you're killing your co-writer on the page. We can't recommend that you do that in reality, because it becomes really inconvenient for getting stuff published. But so Daniel, what are some of the challenges you've run into in writing partnerships?
I think I mentioned it earlier, life. So my big collaboration has been with Jules, but I've also worked on anthologies with other people and planned lots of projects with various individuals, but not everybody can commit the time necessary. I'm at the moment, for example, I'm trying to drag a couple of friends into finally finishing off the short stories they said they were going to write 4 years ago, and it can be stressful trying to say, look, we said we were going to do this. Can we please do this? Or at least tell me that you're not going to do it. I just need some closure here, one way or the other. But then that kind of, but where does that stop? And you've got to start supporting your friend who's going through a difficult time. It's one of those balancing acts where business clashes with friendship, and you've got to be both sensible and sensitive. So, for example, this big project that I've just kind of disappeared into my own world whilst I was remembering it, we haven't written anything on that for a good number of years, actually, because children happen, careers happen, stuff happens, but it's there. It exists in the background, and as long as we remember that and make sure that our relationship stays firm, we can come back to it. But it's when communication starts to break down, it's when in my experience, of course, it's when life is just too much for a contribution, but the person is like, no, I'm fine, I can do this, I've only got 3 children, one of them is a month old, I can do this, I'll get this finished next week. And I'm like, really? So that's the big thing. Life happens, and like all relationships, we have our ups and downs. We've just got to make sure that we remember or try to be sensible and supportive and all of the things, but it can be frustrating. Gary?
Kiernan, what are your trials and tribulations?
I think most of my problems happen on the business end. I think a lot of us don't think of that when we go into a collaboration. I think we're all very excited to start writing, and we're very into the other person, and we appreciate their talents. And we don't really, especially when you're self-published, you don't think about the business end and what editor are you going to use? What proofreader are you going to use? Who's paying for everything? Are you going to split the costs? Is somebody going to put the costs up front? Who's going to put the book up on Amazon? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? The delegation of duties. We don't think about those things until it's ready to roll. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're scrambling. So I think all those things have to be taken ahead of, even before the first word is written. I think you need to have your contracts in order. You need to have a delegation of duties. You need to, you need to be able to say, this is what I'm responsible for after the book is written. And that's where I've run into problems. It's like, yeah, okay, now I'm doing everything because it's got to get done, right? So you learn your lessons.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, because that's often what I'm running my mouth about, as Jenny nods and laughs over at Kish?
Well, I was going to say compromising on, what a character would do or would not do, but following what Kiernan said, yes, 100% that the after and the part about who's going to put the book up on Amazon, because one project I worked, it's 3 of us on one book, and we have to decide who's going to put the book up on Amazon. And if you're not partnering with a person or people that you trust, you absolutely trust, then you could be screwing yourself. You have anxiety because you don't know. You have to trust them enough to tell you what those reports are, share those reports, give out payments and stuff. And then when are we going to take the book down? Are we leaving it up forever? Or do we keep doing this? Are we tied forever to each other? And it becomes those serious things afterward that are not so fun. So yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Jenny?
Well, the adage, good fences make good neighbors. Well, my viewpoint is always been good contracts keep good friendships. I have my crit partner, who is not Bebe, and I have been together for over 16 years, and she does a lot of art, and we've had a contract in place for 16 years because we want to make sure. And I'm traditionally published as well as being a hybrid author. And my agent, the first time I said I wanted to co-write with somebody, she's like, get a contract. I'm like, well, we're just really get a contract. And it's like, I can't, because you're not writing, right? So basically, as soon as I said we wanted to do this, she's like, I've already got it going. I have a co-writing contract from her that she's like, you follow this. Anyone that starts jawing about it, you send it to them, because they're idiots. They're not with a contract. But along that line, so I've had the contract. Contract is not my issue because I have an agent that will not, won't let me rest unless I've got one. But for me, you have to be in the same place. This is true, I think, also for crit partnering, but it's really, really true for co-writing. If one of you is able to write a novel in a month and the other one of you has life stuff happening where you're lucky if you write a chapter in a month, you're not at the right place. I have that with someone else I'm co-writing. He was racing and it took me forever. And I'm like, here's half of it. Go through. And he's like, and I can't race right now. And I'm like, that's okay, my man. It took me 2 years to get you half a book. You take your time, right? But Bebe and I are at the same speed. We're a little slower, a little faster on some things, but we're really in the same place. And that really matters. We're both very goal driven. We're both very commitment driven, and we know what we want, and we have worked it out. We've got contracts, we've got everything. So, but before her, really the downside for me was not in the same place. someone I was supposed to co-write with. Literally, we were starting to do the promo while we're working on the stuff, so people will be super excited, and his career just blew up. Like, he's doing a million things. He's like, I'd still like to do the project, but not right now. And I'm busy enough that I'm not like, give it back, right? Because I love him and I'd still like to work with him. But at this point, BB and I will be probably putting that back and doing it because it's going to be faster. Because he doesn't have the bandwidth. So I think that's a lot of it. It has to be the right person, the right place, the right time.
EM?
I would say, like, doing the shared world projects that I've been a part of, personality, I don't know what it is with my words today. Personalities, they matter because for our shared world, we have, like, let's say 7 authors, working together. And I think with a big group, there's always one diva. And, learning how to manage the diva and, still work and write at your own pace. And then I know for me, I can get imposter syndrome, or then I'll look at someone else at times and, just sort of start that comparison game and just stopping yourself from doing it. So just making sure that, like, I'm managing myself as well as, managing my project and making sure that I'm meeting my targets. And, I like to cheer people on. So just just helping to build each other up, but also managing the mean girl or the mean guy, just sort of managing that. But, yeah, I think mostly everyone's touched on everything. It's just personalities, making sure that you mesh. And then I feel like you take away things that you've learned. And part of what you're learning is, like, I guess, pegging personalities that are not going to mesh and sort of weeding those out as well up front. So I'm learning that part as well. So, yeah.
BB?
As a baby writer, I don't know what I don't know. So with Gini's patient help, I'm figuring it out. I know the stories that I want to tell. I'm struggling with the mechanics of how to do that, but not the ideas. And I'm very capable of standing up and speaking my piece and making sure my voice is heard. So it's great. We reflect off each other a lot. Part of my challenge is, again, this may not be a universal challenge. I'm a natural short story writer. I can go really dark, 2,000 words, done, great. And Gini's like, what? What? 2,000 words is like, not even a chapter, right? So there's making sure I learn how to make stuff long enough, but to work within Gini's style, which is she's just getting warmed up at 120,000 words. Then again, we're finding what we're really good at. I mean, I know all writers like to research, but I love to research. It's like my special happy place. Today she gave me homework and I just couldn't be happier. It was so we're learning what the other one is really good at. And that's a pretty special journey. It means you've got to be open to that kind of critique, sometimes even criticism. But I owned a business in Silicon Valley for 30 years. I've been yelled at by a lot bigger and scarier people than Gini, so I'm good.
Challenge accepted.
Uh-oh.
For what you wish for. Layla, how about you?
So with the shared worlds, kind of touching on what some of the others have mentioned, it's kind of worrying sometimes that not all the pieces are going to fall in place. I have a very journalistic background. I'm used to having a deadline. I'm used to coming in before my deadline. And it's the same with the shared worlds. When I am accepted into a shared world project, I almost immediately start ideas, character sketches, getting things down. I want to have it done a month, if not more, before the books are even going to be cover revealed. So when it starts coming down to the wire and some folks are like, oh yeah, I haven't started this yet, I'm working on X, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this gonna fall apart? Is it gonna, are we gonna have all the books out? Or all the books gonna be the same length? Are the readers gonna be upset because we have some folks who followed the guidelines and the minimum word count, and other folks who were like, yeah, here's my 20,000 words when it was supposed to be 40,000, and sorry, that's all I manage type deal. So that's always something that I keep in my head. And when I'm looking at a project going, okay, when I'm looking at who else has signed up, oh yeah, we've done a bunch of these now, where it's like, oh, it's the same group of us. We're all good. We're going to get these out on time. We're all going to promote, because going back to, what others have said, are we all going to promote? Are we all going to put as much into it? Are we all going to put into advertising? Like, what are we all contributing to the project to make sure that it launches properly? So, that's always been a big one. And unfortunately, oddly enough, the last couple projects, the biggest issues haven't been with people in the project. It has been with having arcs leaked and found on pirate sites within a day of books releasing. That's really been the biggest problem lately with some of the shared worlds. One of them was released today. It was uploaded on a pirate site last night.
Yeah, and I mean, one of those things to look at pretty hard is that idea of the IP, right? And when you're looking at your contracts, things to consider around the IP are, who owns it, if it's split, for what period of time, are there buyout clauses, what happens if somebody dies? One of the things I recommend everybody do is look at the SIFLA Legacy Kit, because it helps you look at managing all these kinds of assets. It's a free resource. And when you're doing things in these shared worlds, for example, I know a couple of people where this has happened to, where you have somebody dies or there's something else that happens, so that somebody who is a co-creator of an asset no longer has full rights to do anything with even their own part of the creation. So this is the sort of stuff you want to make sure you know and have a pretty good idea, especially if you're both co-writing the same work in the same book. Shared worlds can have their own complexities and things like this, but figure out what you can do with it and how you can play with the shared world. Figure out how you can work with, if you're co-writing a book, if both of you have ownership in the asset, and if something happens to one of you, what can the other person continue to do with it? So this is just stuff that I've seen that you need to consider and be aware of, or otherwise you may wind up with an orphan series. So now that I'm done talking about the fun stuff,
Thanks for that downer there, Jim.
Yeah.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. I'm just here to be the bad guy. That's what you pay me for. So, but looking in and diving deeper into the idea of co-writing and co-creating, what are the things, if somebody is interested in getting into it, what's something you would tell somebody to consider, good, bad, and different? But somebody's like, yeah, I'm interested in co-writing a work, whether it is from that mentorship standpoint, whether it's diving into a shared world, whether it is two people, that are kind of on that same equal footing, but you want to create a world. So Kiernan, what's something you would tell to somebody that was interested in or thinking about doing some sort of co-creation?
I think I would probably suggest to a first timer to do a shared universe, because you can be your own person and write your own story within the guidelines of the shared universe. And it gives you a taste of what it's like to write with other people, and to use, for example, shared places and times, and maybe shared characters, without actually diving headfirst into the I'm going to write a book with you scenario. So that's what I would suggest.
Kish?
I was just thinking about this. I would definitely say one thing to consider, um, know who you're writing with. Most definitely try to write with an experienced person if you are new, because an experienced person has the world of advice and they are realistic about what can and can't be done. If you're two newbies jumping into it, most likely it's going to end up in flames. It's going to fizzle out, like we mentioned before, and it's that project is not going to happen. So I think that would be my thing. Get with someone, have at least one experienced person on the team.
Jenny?
For the experienced person, you have to be able to give up control. And I wasn't for a long time, and I realized it. I tried writing with my crit partner, and I just couldn't. It was like, no, it is literally my way or the highway, and that's not co-writing. Okay, that's somebody else getting to listen to you pontificate. And we realized really fast I wasn't ready. We stopped trying. You also have to be able to have a voice. For quite a while, I was like, okay, there's only a small group of people I'm going to be able to write with, because I'm either going to overpower or I'm going to be so odd, like, oh, whatever you say is right. And that also isn't co-writing. So you have to get to a point, new or experienced, where you can, accept that everybody else has an opinion and their opinion is valid, just like yours. And you have to be able to give up control, so that not necessarily complete control, but you have to be able to say, oh, I hadn't considered going in that direction. Let's talk about it, versus I haven't considered going in that direction, so we're not. And that's a big thing. And personality wise, for some of us, it's harder than others. But for the ones where that's easy, you also have to be able to be strong to say, no, this is why I think my thing is valid. So open communication and the acceptance that you both have things to say. And like sometimes Bebe always talking like, yeah, you're always such as I need to finish. So I finish my thought so I know where I'm going. Like, okay, right. I'm either already sold or already told you no, but you keep talking. Because she needs that to be able to do that. Now I've accepted that she needs that to be able to do that. And I can shut up a little bit more. Because even if one of you is wrong, what you're wrong about could lead you to the right path if you'll both talk about it and listen enough to be able to get there.
Ian?
She sort of just stole my answer, but the communication is key. Because the one thing I can say that's made the Shared World project successful, personalities and all, is communication. Just making sure that you're touching base, making sure that, everybody's at a good place. Just that accountability check-in is super key. Just to make sure there's, we're successful, because it's a group project. So if one fails, it's like we all fail. And just, going in it, seeing it as a team. It's not just me writing, it's us writing. And to sort of, again, that's a way of taking your ego out of the whole thing and just going in to learn and grow. So that would be my advice, is just communicate, go in, it's a group project, and also being confident in your voice as well. Because, again, I don't know if all writers struggle with this, but, just those little bouts of insecurity that lead to just that imposter syndrome. And, I feel like with the right group, we cheer each other on and sort of help each other overcome it. So I would say, know your voice, be willing to learn, and just, it's a group. It's our project, not my project.
Bebe?
I just keep coming back to trust. And I think having a shared, well-articulated goal before you get into this is really important. What do we want for this story, the short story, this book, this novella, whatever it is? Where are we going and how do we get there together? Emphasis on the together. And it takes a lot of generosity of spirit, not only for the teacher, but for the student to, admit, that idea that I'm hanging on to, like it's the last scrap of meat in the world, maybe I should just let that go. So generosity and trust, it's really, really key. And like someone else said, know who you're getting into this with. It's really, really important.
Layla?
Don't be afraid to say what the fuck. Like, seriously, there's moments where the project is going left and you either have to be the voice of reason or jump off the train. There's sometimes no reining them in. And really, I've done one project that was such a struggle because I realized too late when other folks were jumping off the train, and I'm sitting here like clinging to the metal going, I can do this. It would have been more fun to jump off the train because I really felt like the finished project was pulling teeth for me to complete. But more recently, I was like at the front of the jump off the train. We had been talking about it. And the more we talked about it, the more I got that uneasy feeling. And it's kind of like not turning out the way that it was originally presented. And it was like, you know what? Peace. I'm just going to tuck and roll. And sometimes you just have to do that. Like, self-preservation is key as much as the compromise. Like, you can only compromise so much before you start giving away what makes you and your world and your brand special.
Daniel?
Well, oddly enough, that was exactly the point I was going to make. You've got to be aware that there might be a point where you've got to just let it go. It's like any creative project. Sometimes you just reach a stage, you know what, this ain't working. It's a crappy feeling, but you've got to be realistic. And yes, there's self-preservation involved, but also there's self-care involved, especially in this profession. We are very isolated a lot of the time anyway, and that's one of the beautiful things about working with somebody else is you don't have to be isolated. But if working with that person is making your life less fulfilling, alas, you might just have to clench your backside and go, this ain't working.
And kill them on the page.
Well, yeah, and why not?
That tonight.
Look, the number of people that have killed me on the page over the years. And we won't talk about the contract or whatever the bounty is at these days. So, there's still a ton of things we could cover here. But we all sort of have that one thing of, yeah, I know we really needed to get into this and cover this. So to kind of take best advantage of everybody's time, there's a lot of things that we can dive into, such as, well, we could talk about IP all night, but I won't have y'all throwing things at me. But everybody's got that one thing in their mind that we need to talk about, or that you think somebody would need to know or want to know, whether that's horror stories, whether that's lessons learned, whether that is just that one moment that said, oh, this is how I create the one thing I never could have done by myself. So Kish, what's the one thing that you think everybody should know that we haven't touched on tonight?
Yeah. The one thing that I think everyone should know that we have not touched on it is, that's a stumper. Can I pass to someone else and come back?
Sure.
Please. Thank you.
I'm not ready either.
I can go.
Me, right, Jen? Yeah.
I give y'all open call, and everybody's like, "What?"
Well, your problem is you said that we haven't already touched on it. It was like, oh yeah, okay, so
or
I can't.
Something that you want to reinforce. I don't care. Well,
I've got an idea. I can go.
Yes, Daniel, save me from floundering.
It could be so much damn fun. we've spoken about all of the, the horror stories, the legal things, the technical, but there is nothing at all in the world like talking to somebody about something that you're both creating, and you're both going, oh, yes, oh my God, yes, oh my God. I mean, you just sat there and this person's talking and you're going, nothing beats that I found yet. It's the collective unconscious writ large. It's an amazing feeling, and if you can find somebody to have that with, go for it, because yes, there might be horror stories later on, but as long as you just focus on the here and now and enjoy that moment, you'll always have it.
It can really be a huge springboard too to get you over. Like, I know for me, there were certain things that I wanted to write, and I was like really scared to just like write them and put them out there. And then a friend came along and was like, oh, we're doing this shared world and we're doing pet play. And I'm like, I've been dying to do pet play, but I was not doing pet play by myself. But if we've got 12 people that we're going to put these out, sold. And now it's like one of my favorite things, to do. So it can really be that launching point to get you over something that you've been holding yourself back from doing, when you have other people, like, where you can be like, okay, we're going to hold hands and jump together.
Yeah, I think it's having the person where your mind melded enough. So 2 of the series that Bebe and I are working on, I actually wrote the first books well before her, so to speak. And I, she's read them and she's given me a lot of good critique, which was like, okay, we're co-writing because you get these characters. Well, one of the series, the characters are like, we love her, it's great, whatever. You just get that outline done all really well. No, go ahead, right? So I'm doing great on this. The other series, however, the character's like, could you please write the first chapter, maybe the second chapter, maybe you just write the whole book? Would that be okay? And I'm like, it will not. And so what the work we did today, all of a sudden that character was like, oh, she gets me. Okay, it's cool. And having somebody that actually, when I said that, oh, this character is all relaxed now and feels so much better, got it, right? And didn't say, oh, and I'm going to call 911.
Yeah, so you sure you're okay? Yeah.
Yeah. How many voices are in your head? Thousands. Okay. But that shorthand of no, she's like, well, I'm not sure when the mind melts. I'm like, it's starting already. So, I mean, I really think you don't have to worry about it. But that mind melding, that connection with somebody, yeah, that's the really fun part.
I think it's a singularly exciting moment if you are the one whose idea it is to have this shared world. I don't think we've talked about when it's your shared world that you're getting other people to write in. I've done it once. It was a tremendous undertaking. I don't know if I would do it again. Mine was just a shared world anthology, but it was so much work and so much herding cats. But at the end, I got to see what all these wonderful people's ideas were of what their interpretation of my idea was. And it was just fabulous. It was a really great experience.
Bebe?
I'm addressing all the baby writers out there. If you get a chance to get a mentor, dive on that and follow their instructions to the letter. Like Gini said, the first year I was being mentored, I didn't even really know that every single conversation we had was an interview for her getting closer to doing that. So respect the time that experienced author is putting into it. And if you're an experienced author, the payoff may be that you get a co-writer out of it. And in some cases, you can double your output. So it works really well. And again, who doesn't want to meet a new person that you can do the mind meld with, that you can share mentally and then on paper a universe and characters with. It's a really, really exhilarating. Like Daniel said, it's just a really joyful thing.
EM?
Cool. I would just say I would love the part of having fun. Being able to run wild in someone else's world is cool. Just I remember getting like an instant because we had like a chat group in Facebook and getting the message like, okay, you guys need to avoid this part of the world because the dragons are fighting. So get out. And just it's nice. It's just going in and just having fun with it is the best part. Like if you're gonna do a shared world project, just have fun.
All right, Kish, I'm going to give you the last word.
All right. All right. I think I've thought about it now. So you know what I would say, that since we're talking positively, be ready for the popularity that you're going to get online, because when you're just writing as you've got your followers. When you enter into a shared world, you've got your followers plus the followers of all those other people that you have been writing with. So you might be in your little bubble, your secure bubble, but when you open it up to all these other people, you can be getting messages from other people, and they're asking questions, and they're asking the most interesting questions that you never even thought about. And this came from that person, and that person was out there promoting in this group that you're not even a part of, but they come back and they say, well, so-and-so in this group, all the readers in this group, they want to talk to us and they want this, and they're asking these questions, and are you guys ready? And do you have this? And it's like, wow, like this thing is real. It was always real, but this thing is real. So that's one thing that think about, like always be ready, always, have your house in order, digital wise or print wise or whatever. You have your books on deck, because it's not just you, it's more times however much you're writing with.
Well, I think that's a great place to end the evening. But before we close this chapter, let's make sure everybody knows where to find you guys and, of course, all these various works. So, Bebe, I'm going to hit you up first.
All right. Bebe Bayliss, that's BeBeBayliss.com.
Layla?
Everywhere. I am on just about every social media platform. I do TikTok. I do Insta. I have a website on Wix. I am all over Facebook. Find me in Layla's Moonlight Magic. That's my author group. Yeah, I am on social media.
Daniel?
Yeah, you can find me at Monomyth Counseling with 2 L's.co.uk. Sign up for my monthly-ish newsletter where you'll get a free adventure pack, which is fully compatible with the copy that you, of course, already own of my book, Role-Playing Games and Psychotherapy, a Practitioner's Guide. I'm English. Marketing doesn't really settle with me. But you can also find me on YouTube at RPG Therapist, where I talk about geeky stuff and how to use it with your clients. And also, sorry, just realized one more thing. Every Thursday, my friend Jen of Jane's Dreamy Bookshelf do a live stream where we talk about writing, read tarot cards, and have writing sprints, and just generally hang out. So join us on Twitch at 9 p.m. British time, so 4 p.m. Eastern time, I want to say, on Twitch, International Writers Fellowship. It's fun. Tarot cards.
Kiernan?
You can find me at KiernanKellyBooks.com. I'm also on Facebook. My Facebook group is Kiernan's Little Monsters. And I'm going to be at Gay Rom Lit, which is an MM book convention in October in Portsmouth, Virginia. And then in February, I will be at Coastal Magic, which is in Daytona. So if anybody's around and you want to stop and say, hey, that's where I'll be.
Kish?
So I'm Kish Knight, which is KISHKNIGHT on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, but I'm rarely on YouTube. And I have my website is kishknight.com. I'm pretty simple out here, so you can find me online.
Jenny?
GiniKoch.com. I'm all over Facebook. I'm on X, Twitter, Blue Sky, Pinterest. I will be later in this month. I'm not sure where this airs, but later in October, I will be at World Fantasy Con in Kansas City. And something BB neglected to mention, you can find our first published short story together in the Dragonesque anthology from Zombie Means Brains.
And EM.
All right. I'm EM Lacey on my website, on my Twitter. Well, no, I got rid of Twitter. I now have Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So that's where you can find me. Yeah, stop in, see what you can learn, and just say hi.
And I've had the pleasure of being your host tonight. And you can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentialsworkshops.com, speculativefictionacademy.com, creatingprose.com, and of course, here at ConTinual. And we'll see you guys again soon as I edit Daniel out of the episode.
No.
See ya.